Hey everybody, this is Sean Smith and welcome to video number 2 in the Captivate Your Crowd training series, where we're teaching you how to come alive, how to bring your message alive and truly captivate and connect with your audience. And in this video, I'm actually going to break down the word captivate. What are the ingredients that you've got to put into your speech, that you've got to have in your body language and your messaging and so forth to truly captivate people and have them on the edge of their seat so that you can deliver your message in the best way possible so that it lands right on their hearts, which is where our messages really need to land if we're going to be influential and persuasive and get out there and change people's lives. So let's break down the word captivation. I was looking at the definitions and I love this definition. Captivation means to attract and to hold the attention or interest of as by beauty or excellence, or to be enchanting. That's what I love. To be enchanting. I'm going to write another word in here. To be intriguing. A lot of people are really good at giving a presentation, but very few speakers, in my opinion, are truly captivating. And I'm sure you have speakers that you've seen present and you just couldn't take your eyes off them. You wish their presentation lasted, forever. Their 45-minute talk seemed like it was only 7 minutes. That's the connection that we can all have if we truly understand and we're intentional about creating the ingredients that captivation and intrigue and enchantment actually require. And there's nothing that you've got to become, different than what you are. I think it's really more about just allowing yourself to be captivating, right? I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but let's talk about the 3 core ingredients of captivation first. And what I mean by this is what causes people to have that connection that I was talking about on the edge of their seats and they just can't get enough and the time goes by so fast. I think there are 3 core ingredients in any kind of message that people need in order to captivate them. Now, they don't necessarily need all 3 of these. Sometimes, if you're going to YouTube and watching videos, you're not going to necessarily have any knowledge when you're watching the cats or you're watching the babies or you're watching the bloopers and all that stuff. So you don't need each one of these 3, but you need at least one of these 3. And the more that you have, the better, obviously. So the first one is knowledge. People are captivated by anything that they're really interested in, right? So for you, if you're really interested in increasing your confidence and coming alive on stage or in front of the camera, this knowledge is going to captivate you. If you're talking to parents, if they're really truly interested in how to discipline their children or how to keep their emotions inside so they don't, erupt on people or whatever, if they're really truly interested in that, they're going to be captivated, by the knowledge that you give out. So that's one piece. A second piece is entertainment. Entertainment. I mean, we love to be entertained. We love when people are making us laugh. We love when people are dancing.
Okay, now he was close. Try to domesticate you, but you're an animal. Baby, it's in your nature. Just let me.
We all could just sit back and just go, ooh, and watch the show, right? Now, this is something that I think too many speakers put too much energy on, thinking that they have to be the entertainment. And it's great if you can, but this is actually, in my opinion, the least important of these 3 is the entertainment. But most people think they have to be this entertaining force. And really, the more that you try to entertain, the less entertaining you are. Right? And that's one of the themes of this whole series. It's going to be more about, you just being you, and all these things kind of happen on their own. And the third one here is connection. You've got to create a connection with your crowd, because if they don't feel connected to you, if they don't feel like they're speaking or listening to, rather, a real person, and they don't feel like they're on the same side of the fence as you, then they won't listen with the same amount of enchantment or intrigue. So a lot of speakers, they'll talk down to their audience, or they'll put this air of, I know more than you. It's like you take your whole audience and you put them in the dumb bucket right away, and everybody feels bad. Now, that's still intriguing because you can deliver knowledge that way, but you lose connection when you make yourself more elevated than your crowd. And sometimes you can do that with the things that you say, obviously. You can use a lot of negative language like, these are all the mistakes you guys are making, or you know, you don't know what you don't know, or I'm here to give you the secrets that you've never been taught before and stuff. A lot of that marketing language works, but it's not connecting, in my opinion. So I don't want you to create this boundary between yourself and your audience, whether it's a one-on-one interaction or, you know, a crowd of 5,000 people, just so that you can deliver the knowledge. And I think a lot of speakers try to do that. They try to elevate themselves so that the stuff coming out of their mouth sounds more knowledgeable, sounds more reputable, and what have you. And that can be done and it can be effective, but if you lose the connection, then all you are is just this person spewing out knowledge, and knowledge is free nowadays. Like, I mean, there are no secrets out there. That's one of my own pet peeves, is when people talk about all these secrets that they're going to deliver. You know, knowledge nowadays with the internet and smartphones, I mean, people can get just about anything they want, just strictly knowledge, logic, for free. But you can't have that same level of connection. So this is really, really important. And when you're delivering knowledge and you're connecting with people, you're going to be entertaining. So I don't want you to put too much weight on this one. And actually, as I'm speaking, you know, there's a fourth one here that I want to put down. So this is now the 4 core ingredients of captivation. And the fourth one is distinction. Oh, this is so big. You know, as I said, part of, I guess, one of the recurring themes of almost any of my training and videos is just be you, to be authentic. And one of the reasons is the brain is captivated by the things that it cannot categorize. What I mean by that is your brain is a categorizer. You know, it takes information and it puts them in different categories so that it doesn't really have to pay attention. If our brain didn't work that way, then it would be such a hassle to brush your teeth every morning, to drive to work or wherever you've gone before. It would be really difficult because you would have to basically go through every day as like it's new learning. But since our brain takes information and chunks it together and categorizes it, it makes life a heck of a lot easier. Now, if we take that function of the brain and we apply it to speaking, one of the worst things you can do is be like anybody else that your crowd has ever seen before. Because your brain, if their brains rather, can take you and put it in a box, if they can take you and go, oh, she sounds like so-and-so, or she's teaching this that I've already heard before. It sounds a lot like this. It's going to put it in a box and it's not going to pay as much attention. But if you are totally distinct and you show up as something that they've never seen before, they have to be captivated. The brain physiologically has to be captivated because it cannot categorize you. So the cool thing about that is, to be distinct, you just have to be yourself. And I alluded to that in the first video. All you've got to do is just be you, because they have not seen you. You're the only one on the planet just like you. So if you allow your little quirkiness to come out, if you allow your sense of humor, if you allow whatever's truly you to come out, if you show up as a fully expressed version of yourself, they have never seen that before. And even if you deliver the same knowledge that somebody else is delivering, as long as you're distinct, then their brain, because of the way we're wired, has to pay attention. So I want you to pay attention to that as you go forward. Look at, just notice the things that you are captivated by. And more often than not, I would say almost every single time, it's something that you haven't seen before, right? And you've got to pay attention to it. So the best way to do that is just be distinct. And that just means be you. You know, just show up as a fully expressed version of you. So this is not something that you have to really work on, right? I think I said in the last video, you don't have to practice being you. You just have to allow yourself to be you. And that's what connection is all about as well. Connection is something that you allow more than you create. If your goal is to create connection, if you think that connection doesn't exist and until you make it exist, then it will be difficult because you're going to be doing so many things in your performance that's trying to create the connection. But we as human beings, we're already connected. I mean, we have so many commonalities. We have so many common denominators in our stories, in our background, in the pains and the doubts and the fears. When we show up as just true people and we allow the connection that's already there to just be strengthened, it's so much easier than if you try to create. So I think too many people try to do the performance, they try to do persuasion, they try to do influence, they try to do the entertainment and stuff like that I was talking about on the other page. But if you just allow it, oh, I'm telling you, you will have so many less fears on stage, but you have so much less of a block. And hopefully, the ultimate goal is to have no block in between you and the audience, and you just allow the connection that's already there. So obviously, the more, we talk about all these things with speaking, the more it's going to come down to authenticity time and time and time again, because it's going to take care of so many of the fears and so many of the challenges that a lot of people have. When you allow this connection, what you're going to create is rapport. And what rapport is, it's not when people like you. I think that's what that's the connotation of rapport for a lot of people. But rapport is not when people like you. Rapport is when you've created a state of trust. And trust is so critical, especially nowadays. People in the world are a lot less trusting right out of the gate because there's so many scams out there, because there's so much pain, because there's so much, violence, and just there's just so much negativity in the world today, especially on videos, like when they watch TV and they see all these things on camera, so there's a lot less trust inherently on videos and inherently even with speakers than there used to be. And so what a lot of people try to do is they try to create the trust by impressing you or impressing their audience instead of just allow it to just show up because it's already there. We trust people who we see ourselves in, right? So the more that you allow the connection, the more that the trust just shows up automatically. And when people are in a state of trust, they're going to be much more responsive, right? And this goes for everything. They're going to be more responsive when you ask them to raise their hand. They're going to be more responsive when you ask them to go to the next event or to buy your product. But they have to trust you first. Now, if you break down trust, I think trust is a function of three things. Being real. And what I mean by that, obviously, like being who you really are, but be honest. Nowadays, there's so much in the world of scams, right, and especially online, there's so much shortcut marketing, right? People are saying, all you've got to do is take this pill. I'll teach you how to lose weight without changing anything that you eat or without going to the gym. And there's so many people out there that are wanting that magic pill, but you're going to disappoint people if you're not real. And so I think you show up and you go, listen, here's the reality. Parenting is difficult. It's tough to not fly off the hook sometimes. Or here's the reality. Building a business is not going to be an overnight success. The reality is it's going to take effort and it's going to take hard work, right? When you show up as the person that says, listen, I am going to be real with you, and you deliver on that promise, the trust that they have in you is really strengthened and amplified. So be real, be honest. Don't sugarcoat things to try to get people into your programs or try to get people to your events, because in the long run, you're going to be shooting your foot by doing that, right? You're going to maybe get some short-term success because you're delivering this, this sugar-coated magic pill sounding secret. And people show up for that. But if they're disappointed and they lose trust in you, they will not go to step number 2 or step number 3 as they continue to move into your funnel. So don't sell your soul just by trying to get upfront numbers. Be real with people. I've said this word over and over and over again, authenticity. That's just you allowing yourself to be who you are. And a lot of that has to do with you forgiving all the things that you've done that you're holding on to, and you fully accepting yourself. Authenticity is more about you and how you're holding on to who you are and what you deserve and all those internal beliefs than anything that you do externally with other people. So once you clear all those internal things, hopefully you did the 3 things that I asked you to do on video number 1 so that you can get my audio program for free, that it will help you do that. But once you do that internal stuff, it totally changes the magnet and the energy that you're giving off, and authenticity is just really heightened, and trust is really heightened. Now this last one is a piece of authenticity, but it deserves its own conversation, and that's vulnerability. Again, because there's not a whole lot of inherent trust nowadays, people need to know that you are human. People need to know that you're just like them. They need to know that you have doubts, that you have fears, that you have challenges, and that you are just like them as much as possible. And the only way to get that across is by you being vulnerable, by you showing up and saying, listen, these are the mistakes that I've made. You know, once upon a time, I think a lot of people wanted to learn from the person who just jumped out of the gate right away and, you know, made $100,000 in the first week, and they're going to teach you how to do it too. That's really impressive and that's really sexy. But I think nowadays what people need to know is they need to know that you've fallen down also, that you have bumps and bruises, you've got scrapes on your knees, and you're just going to help them avoid some of those things rather than be the bright, shiny, polished, you know, person that's never made any mistakes, that's going to pretend that your life is all hunky-dory and, you know, everything's all nice and shiny, and that's not reality. And most people believe that's not reality, so if you don't give that to them, they'll lose trust in you. So be vulnerable. You know, I learned this when I started really opening up and talking about all my financial problems. Several years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, we filed bankruptcy, and it was a function of me just not really understanding the business side of speaking and coaching, and me not really caring about money, and just a lot of things that I hadn't learned yet. And I realized that the more I talked about the vulnerability and the more that I said, you know, the reason I can actually help you in business is because of the mistakes that I've made. You know, I've burned $500,000 at least in this personal development game, making all kinds of mistakes. And that's why I can actually help you better. I found that people are so much more attracted to that message because it's like it just drops this air of, you know, us versus them. It's like we're just two people. I might just be a few steps ahead of the path that you're on, but I'm certainly not without faults, and I'm not without mistakes, and I'm not without fears. When you show up as vulnerable as you can be, man, I think that's the most connecting human state, is vulnerability. It's like when you see somebody cry and they're in pain, you automatically are connected to them, and sometimes it'll make you cry and you don't even know what they're crying for. It's just that there's this connection in the vulnerable states that we're in as humans, and so it's about allowing all that connection to come out and dropping a lot of those walls. So that's, I believe, how you really truly create trust. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in this video is how do you inspire people? You know, there's 2 ways to try to get people to move. One way is to motivate them. And motivation is when you take whatever you have and you try to put it on people. Motivation is external. Motivation is, you know, dangling carrots in front of people. That's what motivation is. But inspiration comes from within. So if you really want to truly move people in the long run, you've got to inspire them. You can absolutely move people short term by motivating them, by fear tactics, by scarcity tactics, and so forth, and get them to just think, I got to take an action, I got to do this thing. But especially when you're wanting to sell something, or when you're inviting people to an event and so forth, if they come into your funnel, if they come into your door with that sort of negative, carrot-driven scarcity mindset, then they will probably be disappointed, because you're not going to deliver on the feeling that they made their decision from. Right? But if you can get inside of them and inspire them from within, that's something that's more long-lasting for them. So don't try to be that person that puts motivation on people. I want you to reach into their hearts and dig a little bit, because their motivation in the form of inspiration is already down there. All you've got to do is kind of drill for oil a little bit, and once you hit oil, you know, just like really oil, it'll create this geyser effect, and all this stuff will come out. That's what happens with inspiration too. Once we can kind of pop whatever, you know, bubble is going on inside there for people, and their inspiration geyser is ignited, you know, that thing keeps going, and their energy comes from within, and that's where all of their solutions are, and all their courage is, and everything that they need is inside of them. So as an inspirational speaker, you've got to get inside there and just release it from within them. Don't try to put all that stuff on them, right? And the shorter amount of time you have, the more important this is. I've got an event coming up where it's a contest, actually. I've got 3 minutes to try to inspire a room full of people. With 3 minutes, there's no way I'm going to have the time to create the motivation to create any of this stuff. But I have plenty of time to tell them some stories that will get their inspiration ignited from within. And that's actually really easy to do, especially when you're vulnerable and when you're authentic and all these things we've been talking about. So to truly move somebody, here's all I think you need to do. I think there's 2 ingredients. The first thing is to remind them of the inspiration they already have inside of them, right? Don't try to put it on them. Just remind them of something that they've got already inside. So it might sound something like, you know, I know you had dreams. Once upon a time, you got into this game, this speaking game or coaching game, because you wanted to make a difference in your life. Where's that feeling now? You know, you made a decision at some point in time to step forward and to help people. And everything you need is in that decision. And so if you do something like that and you get people to go within and go, whoa, where was I when I made that decision? And then they pop that, you know, they pop that bubble, they dig, and that geyser comes out. All of their motivation comes from within. I like to say, when, you know, in sales, the first thing you've got to do is sell people their own dreams first. Before you try to sell them you or your program or anything else, sell them their own dreams first. Now, the great thing about that is they've already bought their dreams. They just need to be reminded of them. Most people's dream switch is off, but when you come in and go, what was it that you made a decision around? Or where was that time? You know, what were your middle school dreams? When you were a little kid, what was it that you really wanted to do on this planet? And are you doing that? Or is it time to go back and fight for those little kid dreams again, right? Little girl dreams or little boy dreams. Something like that. That's just an example of how you can remind them of something that they've already got stored inside, instead of try to teach or give them something that they don't have. And then finally, when you remind them of something and they're all lit up with that inspiration energy, now you've got to challenge them. To challenge somebody, basically, you know, you don't want to do it abrasively. You want to take this energy that you just released in them and give them some sort of charge, right? Give them some sort of challenge. And it might sound something like, let's say that you're talking to parents. You might say, you know, it's time for you to step forward and to become the person that you want your children to become. So are you going to be the kind of parent that says, do what I say, not as I do? Or are you going to be the kind of parent that models what you want your children to follow? You have both choices. Whichever choice is more important to you, act accordingly. Right? So that's not abrasive. I'm not saying, listen, don't you do this. I'm not wagging my finger at people. I'm just saying, hey, you've got a choice to make. You can either be this kind of parent or you can be that kind of parent. Make your choice and follow that choice. That's an example of challenging people. Or, you know, if I'm speaking to coaches or speakers or trainers, I might say something like, you know, you have something inside of you. You've been given a gift in the form of the lessons that you've learned along the way, in the form of everything you've gotten with all the past experiences, with all the pains, with all those gifts that you've been given. And those gifts are not yours to keep. You've only been given those gifts to give to other people. So how much longer are you going to sit on your hands and let other people go by you, not receiving the wisdom and knowledge that you uniquely have to give them? You have people out there who are desperately seeking what you have inside. And it's time to step forward and give that to them, because that's not yours, and your Creator did not put it inside your DNA for you to sit with it. Something like that, right? So remind them of the energy and then give them some kind of challenge. And if you do all of these things, there's not a whole lot of things. And I think that's another big issue with speaking, is that a lot of people are trying to remember too many rules. Where do my hands go? What do I say? When am I supposed to put my chin like this? And when am I supposed to raise my tonality? Those things are not unimportant, but they're nowhere near as important as a few foundational concepts that you've just got to go deep with. So when you allow yourself to be authentic and vulnerable, and you allow the connection that already is established between you and other human beings, and you just be distinct and you just be yourself, captivation happens naturally. Connection happens naturally. So this is not anything that you need to create in your lab. It's just something that you must allow. And it's so much easier than the way most people are trying to create that connection. I'll tell you what, when you allow yourself to do these things on stage, I don't think you're going to have any fears anymore. That's my experience, at least. You're just not going to have any fears around forgetting to say something, because you'll realize it's not about what you say, it's about who you are, it's about what you give and your energy. So hopefully these nuggets are going to help you moving forward. Do me a favor, leave me a comment. Let me know if there's anything you disagree with, or if there's anything that you totally agree with because you had an experience that backed up any of this stuff that I wanted to say, or if there's another piece that you would add to captivation and connection, then please share that comment on this page so that we can interact as much as possible. We'll be coming to you with our next video, which is going to be about marketing. One of the most common questions I always get is, how do I market? How do I set up my events? And how do I price it? And how do I get people there? Blah, blah. How-to stuff around the marketing funnel. We'll come to you with that in our next video.
Okay, now he was close, tried to domesticate.